speaker, Karlie Martens, who is a school counselor with Sturgeon-based schools. And she's going to have a discussion with all of us about her experiences with working with kids in Door County and how that relates to our child care system. So I just want to give a little bit of information before we hand it over to Karlie. Those of us who are in Door County know that we're fortunate to have high quality childcare in Door County, and that's provided by both the group centers and home-based providers. But we know that many families still struggle. They face significant challenges when it comes to childcare. And as a community, we have to work on one, bringing sustainable, high quality, affordable childcare to all Door County families who want it. And two, to provide a living wage to all childcare providers in the county. So some families are unable to find care during hours they need or at locations that are workable. Some families struggle to afford childcare, and other families in our community just simply cannot afford childcare. When it comes to childcare providers, they also face financial challenges. Caring and educating young children is labor intensive, and the younger the children, the smaller number of children that can be properly cared for by one provider. So in light of the number of providers it takes to care for a group of children with a range of ages, child care provider wages are generally low. And in Wisconsin, child care provider hourly wages typically fall in the range of $10 to $15 an hour. So in the field of childcare, this dilemma is often referred to as the trilemma. So it's three things that compete with one another, and that's the affordability of care and education, the quality of the care and education, and the workforce costs. And in Door County, I should say some of us are keenly aware of this dilemma, and other people don't really understand what's going on. That's one of the reasons we're having these child care town hall meetings, is to help educate and connect with our larger community, to have people understand the issues. So the result is a child care system that struggles to survive and fill an incredibly important role in our community. And sadly enough, we're not alone. There are communities across the United States that face this dilemma, this trilemma. And they're facing the same challenges we are. And the COVID-19 pandemic has made the crisis worse. So without a universal childcare system, though, each community across the country has to find its own way of supporting sustainable, high-quality childcare. And as last week's speaker at our town hall meeting, Steve Jenkins, pointed out, it takes all of us to do that. Our county's child care system is a part of our key social infrastructure. It supports families and enables parents to work. It affects the prosperity of individual families as well as our overall county and general community. And it's directly tied to quality of life for everyone in our county. More importantly, early child care and education has a huge impact on the social, emotional, and cognitive development of the kids and the development of these young children. And that's what Karlie's going to talk about with us tonight. So I want to transition things over to Karlie. She, like I said, she's an elementary school counselor in Sturgeon Bay. And as she puts it, she works with both the littlest of the littles, and that's 4K students through second grade students and their parents. And she's going to share some information with us tonight on a variety of topics, including changes in family and society, lagging skills and trauma that kids can suffer and have to face, social and emotional development of kids, and the interventions that the schools have available to help these kids. So Karlie's going to provide some information and get things rolling. And she's going to let us know how she would like to handle questions. You can put things in the chat box. And if you need to, you can also email me. I'm going to put in my email address right here. And if you're on the phone or something, and I will pass it along to Karlie. But with that, let's welcome Karlie. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was talking with Christina earlier, and I am not used to being a presenter. I'm used to conversation. So please feel free to throw something in the chat box or interrupt me at any point, because that's fine with me too. I'm not used to one just kind of teaching and talking and sitting and getting. I don't like those types of things. So the conversation is really important to me. And I think that I want to make sure that you are all getting what you want out of the presentation as well. So yes, as Christina said, I am a school counselor. So I work with the littles of the littles. I work with 4K through 2nd grade. And as a school counselor, my main job is to focus on the social emotional learning of students and kind of helping them regulate their emotions, learn about their feelings, learn about how to handle their emotions, and kind of how to be good humans in general. It's a real fuzzy, like I kind of cover everything. And so I do a variety of things. I go into classrooms, I go into every classroom, 4K through 2nd grade, and do classroom guidance. I do individuals with specific students, and I can even run small groups with groups of students. So I see, and I would like to believe that I know all 250 of my students very well. I do know all of their names. I work hard at that, but we do also, I am seeing, or we as a school are seeing a lot of different things coming through, and my job feels more important than ever. So I watched, a few weeks ago, I watched the No Small Matters documentary, which kind of prompted these town halls, and the line that stuck out, I mean, there were a lot of important things in that presentation, but the line that stuck out for me was, that kids are not starting out in life with all of the same opportunities, and that we think as society that everyone gets this fair start and everyone starts at square one. And I can tell you from the school's perspective that that's not the case. We are seeing a lot of different changes in the students that are coming through our doors. And I'm a fairly new educator, and so I feel like these students, the students that are coming in today are the same that I saw 5 years ago. But if I talk to an educator who's been in the school systems for a while, there's changes happening. And I think some of those changes, some of the big changes, are some significant lagging skills. And I talked with all of our 4K teachers as well, because I was like, I know the big stuff, but like, what else are we seeing? And so a lot of the things that we're seeing are that came up were fine motor development. So we're not just talking about social, emotional, and cognitive development, but also physical development. So, and fine motor is not just holding a pencil and writing our letters, because in 4K, when you come in 4K, it's also not entirely developmentally necessary to be able to write all of your letters. Is that something we practice and we work on? Absolutely. But when you start 4K, I want you to have finger strength, and I want you to have the ability to do things for a period of time. And that comes from things like playing Play-Doh and drawing with chalk and throwing balls and practicing buttoning buttons and snaps and Velcro, using your hands in different ways. And those types of things, I think when we hear fine motor, a lot of people are like, oh, writing. And it's not just writing, because when the kids are little and the kids, like I have 2 little boys at home right now, they're 4 and 2, and we do things that are not writing based that work our fine motor. We do Play-Doh, we do, these big tongs, and we practice using those, and scooping and sand into buckets, and just playing is essentially it. And some of those physical skills are lacking because of where what society has given us for family units and or child care. And I can't say it to one or the other. I think it's a combination of everything. So like Christina said, this is a trifecta, right? So we have a variety of different concerns that we are seeing within our society, and it comes down to childcare, and there's also this rise in lower socioeconomic status. So some of our families that are coming to us are below the poverty line. And yes, there are things that are in place to help support those families with a variety of food and rent and utilities and all of those things. But what also happens is those parents are working much more to be able to help support their family. And what the trade-off is not seeing their children as much, not interacting, not playing with them, or they go to a variety of different childcare providers. So they have to work third shift and the regular daycare is not open, or the daycare center is not open. So they find their next door neighbor that can help them out. And oftentimes it's great that they're able to find those people, but it's also not a high quality, or not always a high quality childcare situation. So looking at it from that perspective, there's physical limitations, and there's also, so like I said, social emotional limitations. So the biggest thing that we are seeing are with somebody, I didn't want to keep going if somebody was going to pop in. Nope. Okay. Some social emotional concerns. So the ability for a student to come into 4K and fit into the mold of what school looks like. So structure and routines are very difficult for some students. And especially from the students that thankfully, like a daycare center tends to have much more structure and routine than my house. I'm going to tell you right now, like my house doesn't have a lot of structured routine, certainly not the same level that a school does. And so having them know, like, okay, we all go to the bathroom at this time, and this is when we all eat. And this is when we start rest time, and having everyone on that same schedule, that is a huge plus when kids are starting to be exposed to school. We are seeing students that when they choose, they are very internally driven. So they want to do what they want to do. And so without that structure and routine, they are very reluctant to want to follow the teacher's directions or to follow what the rest of the is doing. And so we are seeing a lot of physical outbursts, so yelling and screaming, throwing things. That's a very common one. We do see physical aggression towards teachers, towards staff, towards other students. Thankfully, that's not necessarily the commonplace, those extremes, but they are there. And then there's the midline, or the common, where there are students. Yes, sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
There must be something else going on, because years ago, in the olden days, there's even no option for me to attend a child care center. All the kids stayed home with their parents. And somehow when we got to kindergarten, we all figured out how to get in line and go to the library at this time and the bathroom at this time. So what's different?
Yes, you probably did. And so that kind of is a great segue into some of the other areas that we are seeing struggles in. And that brings up the conversation of trauma. And so and it's not just Sturgeon Bay, and in fact, I want to say it's more than even just the state of Wisconsin. I think the country as a whole has been looking at childhood trauma, impacts that it has on a child's brain. And trauma is not, I think when you hear trauma and don't have the same background in it, you think some sort of traumatic experience, right? So a car accident, a house fire, some sort of maybe domestic abuse, physical abuse, a hospital stay, something extreme. But in regards to childhood trauma, it is a state of increased stress. So it is literally the child's body has been in a state of increased stress. most often these cases are things like poverty, lack of childcare, so being moved between house to house to house, maybe a split parent family. There are, I mean, yes, there are things like physical abuse, emotional abuse, domestic violence, but a lot of the things that are occurring to students are just where we are in our society, right? So parents that are doing the absolute best that they can to make it work, but are not realizing the impact that some of those decisions are having on their kids. So when a child lives in a constant heightened state of stress, their brain changes. And what happens is when you get stressed, your brain goes into fight or flight, right? So when you get scared or you are worried about something, you instantly either fight or you fly, which is our way back in, that's what we needed when we were figuring out how to survive. Is this giant cat going to hurt me? Do I need to run? Or can I, if I just sit here and pretend to do nothing, will I be okay? Or do I need to fight it? And what is happening is their brain resorts to fight or flight, but in the classroom. And so what we see are students that are working through math, and math might be challenging for them. And so it is a difficult thing. But their brain is already in fight or flight mode. So they don't ever come down to baseline. Their baseline, when we hear parents say, well, they go from 0 to 10 in a second, my head instantly says trauma, because trauma kids don't start at a 0, they start at an 8. So they're not going from a 0 to 10, they're going from an 8 to a 10. And so they are living with this high level of stress. And then you add on something like, let's all line up to go to the bathroom, and they don't understand that they're going to be coming back to whatever they're working on, or they can't see the future of that. Their stress then goes all the way up to a 10, because they don't have the tools to handle the stress that they already have. So it's like a really good example that I had at a trauma conference actually in Sturgeon Bay was the presenter said she was in a car accident. And so she got T-boned, and she was like, I need to get out of this car. And she couldn't figure out how to get out of the car. Like, she kept yanking on the door, it wasn't opening. And she's panicked now because she's on the highway. She just got in a car accident. She can't get out of her car. And this woman has a PhD, like she is a well-educated person. And she starts climbing out the window. She starts like, okay, I have to climb out the window, and starts going. And then she looks and the door is locked. And her brain couldn't stop enough to be able to say, just check the door lock. You lock the door when you get your car door locks when you get in the car. And so she went through this moment of her stress was so high that something as simple as unlocking your car door wasn't something that her body could handle in that moment. And kids are living with that level of stress all the time, is what we are finding. And so they come to us unable to unlock the car door. So yes, something as simple as lining up and going to the bathroom can cause a child to have a very emotional reaction. Or something as simple as, okay, let's have something to eat right now, or let's tie your shoes and go to the gym, can cause some kids to have a very emotional reaction. And it's all because of the way that their brain is wired. So what we have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Christina.
Can I just make a comment on that, just so people understand? So, and also when you say when it's just the way that their brain is wired, that's still the result of their social environment. It's not necessarily that they were born with their brains wired this way. The connection to the early childcare is that your everyday experiences create pathways. Imagine a field that you walk through. And if you go over that same path all the time, the grass becomes worn, and that's the path that's becomes set, right? And so over time, these kids develop, those are their go-to ways of thinking, their go-to ways of responding, and that's why they're at an 8. This is just where they have developed to. It's not born this way, it's conditioned to be this way, like we're all conditioned. So
yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a very good distinguishing. Yes. Amy.
Sorry, I'm on mute. It was really for Alexis.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I was, and Christina just beat me to it, but not to belabor the point, but so I'm a mom of a 3-year-old that's been in childcare center except for COVID, since he was 6 months or 6 weeks, I mean. So for me, I just wanted to say that I see that in my 3-year-old who has the structure and has the routine, but he has come to cope and be able to process those changes. So he still doesn't want to line up. He still doesn't want to pee. He still doesn't want to do those things. But he has, and we have figured out how to communicate with him, to explain to him, to tell him, like Karlie hit it perfectly. It's like he put it together that he's coming back. Going to the bathroom, you can still come back. And I just think that it's really important that so Christina talked on it, but that was just going to be my 2 cents from my perspective as well. And I don't want to totally derail, but one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I'm glad that I think it was Julia mentioned this, was like where we are now. And one thing that's kind of come up in my head is like, we as parents don't have this support structure, this village of, like the kid goes out to play in the neighborhood sort of thing. Like I have families, neighbors and that kind of thing, but they don't see them out in the streets. Like it's just not. So I wonder, and I have been wondering, and maybe this is a future topic. Like I said, I don't want to derail the whole thing, but when we make these connections and need to bring together a really broad coalition to address these sorts of things, and the perspectives are different for parents today versus like my experience going to school and before that even. Like, how do we communicate? And Karlie, you're doing fantastic. Like I'm here for all of it. Thank you. But I want to make sure that there's like, we can boil this down to some really high hitting like talking points so that we can get across multiple experiences and people. So thank you. Keep going. Okay.
No,
sorry.
Alexis, as the mom in me, so I'm here twofold. I'm here as my school counselor hat, and yes, I see these things in school, and yes, but I'm also a mom, and I have to say, Alexis, like we don't have that community, and so we moved from Green Bay 2 years ago, and in Green Bay, I knew like we had no circle, and except my husband had a couple of friends because he grew up there. And thankfully, since moving to Sturgeon Bay, my circle has opened a little bit, being in my position. But you're exactly right. Like we go to the park all the time and nobody says anything to us. and that kind of, so I think you're right that it takes
like that's not just a COVID thing.
Right.
Like,
yes.
Pre-COVID, it was still like, don't come up to my kid. Don't no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think as I guess I'm going to say younger parent because my kids are younger. I think that that's something that I want, and what I try to do in my role is, as Christina said, I work with the kids, yes, but at my age, I work with the families just as much. And so my hope is that people will be more open, and my goal is to make families more open to get that community involved, because in Door County, we have some fantastic resources to help families. We have things like this going on. Happen everywhere. And so making
Karlie, we lost you for a minute. Can you go back like 10, 15 seconds?
Sorry, I just got a little notification and I was like, of course it did. Yeah, so I work with the families just as much as I work with my students. And my goal or my hope is that families would be open to making sure, like to inviting that village in. And Door County has so many amazing resources for families that that we can create a village around your family if you are struggling. And there are people that are, their main job is to do that. And there's things like this happening, like these conversations that just don't happen everywhere. And so I have Liz is in here and she's my person, my sitter of my children. And like, I text her all the time and I'm like, we're in this together. Like, we've got a tribe and we're slowly growing our tribe too. And so I think you're exactly right, Alexis. Like, I think that's a piece of this society change too, is, so yes, we're seeing this increase in trauma and we're seeing these increased changes in the family unit, and these families that I truly believe are doing the best that they can given their circumstances, but they don't have the ability to provide stable and steady childcare because of a variety of circumstances, or they don't have their tribe, or they don't have the support network. Like, even for my husband and I, we moved to Sturgeon Bay and none of our family lives here. So if Liz is out, then I'm out. Like, we don't have, like, there's no backup option. There's no, and our family is very supportive. And I know that we are strong in our family unit, but our resources are limited at this point, and we're not the only family with that as a concern. And so I think that's where from the school end of it, and my mom hat, yeah, you're exactly right, Alexis. Like, there's these broader society changes that have been kind of coming, that we are seeing these significant changes. Yes, Julie.
So how could we provide opportunities for parents and neighbors to meet each other? I mean, in the olden days, there used to be more sidewalks, more people walking around. And now I think probably parents like yourself are so busy that about the last thing you want to do at the end of the day is go to some block party or something. You got a million things to do and you got to work tomorrow and your spouse has to work and all that kind of thing. So how can we create these villages that you want?
Yeah, Amy.
So if Ann Schmeichel was co-presenting with Karlie, she would chime in wearing her Partnership for Children and Family hat. Chad is on the call today, but that was really one of the things when we developed the partnership. It was not only the social and emotional piece for our kiddos, but it's that parent connection piece, because we know that's what's lacking in our community. Chad's role, one of his many roles, is to lead parent cafes. And the idea pre-COVID was to bring parents together to have these conversations. Now we're trying to do that in a virtual world, but it's still a challenge. I don't know, Chad, if you want to chime in on that.
It certainly is. I'm trying to video so you can see my beautiful self. There I am.
And you are beautiful tonight.
Thanks, Amy. It certainly is a much more of a challenge to do it virtually. It's not to say that we haven't had some successful ones. The conversations that we've been having have been focused more as of late of dealing with the stress of school and not school and being a parent and COVID times, but those cafes work really well for really any topic. So
yeah,
childcare I would think would fit quite well in that.
Yeah. And one of the other goals of the partnership is to start a welcome baby program, where when that child is born here, they receive this kit of information. They're immediately connected with Rebecca and other community resources. And then those invitations to engage in those conversations with parents around newborn issues, around toddler issues, those become natural. So we're really trying to help create that. But, everything in our world is slow, unfortunately. And COVID has made things even slower. But those are some of the ideas. But again, it is, block parties have come up many times when we've talked about this in different groups. Somebody, this came up many years ago. Kelly Avenson brought this up when we were doing a old aging study. But there was a granting source about You know, just bringing people together. Here's $500 to throw a block party. So you get to know your neighbors, and it covers the food and the soda and that kind of thing, and maybe an inflatable or something like that. But yeah, we almost have to be like, okay, Karlie, come out of the house. We know you're tired, like Julie said, right? You know, so what's going to make you on a Saturday morning haul the kids out, meet the neighbors, and do that engagement thing when you're like, I need to clean, I need to do laundry, and my kids need to be to whatever practice. So yeah, I think there's those barriers, but I think as long as we keep having these conversations, we can hopefully come up with some creative solutions on how to create neighborhoods again and create supports. So, you know, Alexis, when the Barker Center went into COVID mode, right? You were lucky you got to work from home, but if you didn't, what else would you do? And just like Karlie said, if Liz is sick or Liz goes on vacation, what does she do? Liz, you don't ever get to go on vacation, apparently.
And I just want to add, if I could, I think that's a good segue to a pitch for the other elected, because like Karlie, I have many hats on for this meeting too. So I'm on Door County Board, and I know that I'm really happy to see City Council. I think, so shout out to Spencer if you recruited some of your colleagues. I failed my mission for this week, but anyway, I would just pitch that, you know, we started talking about the economic stress and like, what can we do to help with the childcare issue? And I think making it accessible and affordable are two keys that we really need to focus on as the economic development part of it as well. So yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah, this is Spencer. I know in my mind, you know, I love economic development, but it just working with the United Way and attending all these childcare task force sessions and such, economic development, it's great, but it can't happen with a lot of things, and daycare is one of them, and even jobs of the future, trying to get young families to this town. We don't even really know what we're missing out on, because somebody from afar that's smart is probably searching, okay, if I move there, where am I going to put my kid as far as daycare and other things, and who knows what we're missing out on. So I think that's why the city's here. I'm involved. Helen Bacon, I know, is really involved, and Dan Williams is here on the line tonight. So we definitely want to try to find a solution here.
And Spencer, Helen did join the call.
Beautiful.
And Karlie, I wanted to ask you a question, going back to what you were talking initially about the child care situations that parents find. And it seems like maybe, and this ties in with other things you've said too, there might be a broader range these days, which then results in a broader range of where kids come, where they're at, when they're at 4K, which is a challenge. It might also almost be easier if you had a bunch of them that were facing the same challenges down here, or a bunch of them that were facing the same challenges up here, but the variability causes challenges. Do you have conversations with parents about selecting childcare? You're getting kids at 4K, and we think that one of the things, all the research tells us that if we can have some high quality childcare at 6 weeks, or even a year or 2 years before they get to 4, that can make the difference. Do parents know what to look for? Are you having conversations? Do you find that as parents you work with that had a young kid and then have a second kid, what they're looking for in childcare changes?
I think so. I haven't had many conversations on childcare, and unfortunately, I think this is twofold. So one, I think because by the time they reach 4K, they're like, I don't have to worry about childcare. Yes. But we are even like in this year, we have quite a few teachers' children in our 4K class. And 4K does not have school on Fridays in Sturgeon Bay. And there was mass panic of what are we going to do? What am I going to do as a teacher with my child that I have nowhere for them to go on Fridays? Like conversations like, you need to just take my child. And it's like, no, we don't. But like, they have nothing, they don't know what to do. And even so, preparing for this presentation as well, I talked to a handful of people, and I don't like having conversations I don't have answers to. And so I don't think I have actively avoided any childcare conversations. However, I also haven't brought it. I have not asked. I have not. Because I truly believe that a lot of these families are doing the best that they can. And so those families that are piecemealing their childcare together, I think they know, they wish they could get into a center-based, or they wish they could find a stable, because nobody wants to go to Susie on one day and Jeannie the next day, and then grandma, whoever is going to cover the every third Tuesday. Nobody wants that. Like, no family wants that. And so I really believe that they want that. I think it's just not accessible to them. I think that their income is a huge driving factor, and then I think the hours as well. So yes, there's a lot of like some of the families that I'm thinking of that I know that would need childcare. They are single parents. They are working as many jobs as they can to just make ends meet. And they're honestly just trying to put it together to make it work. Like I have some that work in restaurants, because that's a huge income base in Sturgeon Bay. And so they literally leave for work when their kid gets off the bus. And so they are just ships passing in the night. And then they so after the restaurant closes at 9, 10 o'clock, they then go pick them up from wherever they're sitting or whoever they're with, wake them up, and then bring them home so that they can fall asleep, which causes, lack of sleep is a huge, whenever I have a kid that's struggling, I go, are you tired? Are you hungry? Do you need to use the bathroom? And that's usually one of those things. And then we just I can solve those problems, and then we work on the bigger things. But those are the initial things. And I've had kids nap most mornings in my room sometimes. And it's just, we meet the kids where they are at. And as a school district, we are we are adapting what we do to help support the kids. And so I guess I like I said, it's kind of two-pronged, Christina, because I don't think I've actively avoided the conversation, but I don't have a good answer for them. And I don't like having conversations I don't have answers to, because then I feel like we're just all looking at the problem and going, oh, look at that nice problem. And then we have nowhere to go. And or I don't, like, I've even had teachers ask me, where do you go for childcare? And like Amy knows, I don't share. So
we all know you don't share.
And so her phone number is in
Cori's got her hand up. If we
called it out, Karlie.
Take a question, Cori.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Karlie said about accessibility. So we have a great resource. Every county has access to a child care resource and referral agency. Ours is based out of Green Bay, serving Door County, and they can give great guidance to parents about what to look for in quality child care. They can provide lists of providers. They don't recommend one over the other. So it's Family and Child Care Resources of Northeast Wisconsin is the agency that serves our region. So if a family comes to the county for subsidy assistance with Wisconsin Shares, we'll give them that information and direct them that this is a resource that they can go to. But that is still out of reach for a lot of the families that really need childcare. So even families that qualify for Wisconsin Shares still have to pay quite a big chunk out of pocket, and some parents just can't afford that. So they might get the information on what quality childcare looks like. It's just out of reach for them right now. So they have no option but to use the neighbor down the street or multiple different people who they know at varying levels. And we see that impact all the time in the Department of Health and Human Services from some of the families that we serve. It's not because they're choosing a lower quality option. That's all that they have.
Well, and so given the reality of things, and I appreciate this, the comments and the idea of meeting families where they are, but we want to try and also improve things in the county, knowing that, recognizing that where things are not where we would like them to be. We are not doing the best for our families. So do people have thoughts on, given the conversations that we've had and the situations that many families find themselves in, what can we do? Do people have some thought? This idea of community, those comments really struck me, because I think of Door County being an incredibly welcoming, tight-knit community compared to other places that I have lived. So to hear people talk about, we really don't have that community here, like that's in my notes, that's going down. We have about 15 minutes left, and that's still plenty of time. But if people have some ideas on things to do, things to try, I would like to have some of that discussion too. And if there's no discussion, we'll let Karlie keep talking about other things.
One of the things that I know, Christina, you and I have talked about this at various times, but I think one of the things is to find out who is providing the care, and then to try to get them the education or at least information about how they can provide a quality intervention with those kids. So getting that information out about the impact of trauma and brain development and how we can intervene to create quality experiences for kids to kind of combat some of that trauma and build resilience, I think is really important. We haven't been able to tackle it yet, but I know that we're working on it, trying to figure out just where are the kids, who's caring for them, and how can we help support those people? How can we get more of those informal, unregulated childcare providers to consider becoming regulated, so that they can access those resources and just bolster the quality for all the kids?
Yeah, and I would say even if people are concerned about or have concerns or anxiety or just uncertainty about what it means, what are the consequences of regulation or certification, just having conversations about what are the resources you need. We just want to learn. We're not going to push anyone to go for being regulated or licensed or certified. We just want to connect. I completely endorse what Cori said. We want to connect with the home-based providers, understand what's going on in the county, and provide resources to improve care. That's our primary goal. If other things come down the line, that's great. So if anyone else can help get that word out, that is what we want to do. We just want to support the providers. Oh, Helen has her hand raised, and so does Spencer.
And Jane.
Sorry about, I wasn't able to attend the other talks, but I know that the city has set aside some money. Steve Jenkins has been pushing childcare from Door County Economic Development Corporation. He's been pushing childcare. And the last time I talked to Josh, he was talking about, I don't know if you remember the meeting that we all had a while back, and the topic of some sort of a study came up. And we don't have the answers. Like Karlie was saying, I don't like to talk to people if I don't have the answers. That maybe one of the things we do need to do is some sort of a study or something so that we can get this information in one place. And then we can look at the information, and then we can maybe move forward. A lot of it is kind of subjective and anecdotal. I mean, we're talking, I think, back to being a single mom of 4 kids many years ago and trying to put childcare together and working multiple jobs and how difficult that was. And and so I do understand, you know, what some parents are going through. So I don't know. I know we had, Christina, we've had that discussion about study, no study, et cetera. I don't know where you are with it, but I think that if that would be something that whether it's a formal, informal study of some sort, getting that information. The other question I had was, okay, so, you know, we have childcare as it was, then COVID hits and everything kind of gets thrown up and down, you know, thrown around. And then there was all the trauma of people thinking that there would be no childcare center. And I mean, if I was a parent, I would be very anxious about my kid going places that I wasn't able to really control who they were around or what they were seeing, who they were with. And since COVID will, I'm thinking, going to be with us for a while, are we looking at childcare looking different, say in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Are there things that are happening today that are going to make childcare look different in the future? So I don't know. It just seems like there's some really interesting questions out there that would be really great to follow up on. And I don't want to speak for Josh, but I know that there might be a small amount of money that could be gathered. I don't know if the county has put anything aside, but that might be something that we could plan for and then move ahead with more information. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. Yes, we have been in touch with both Josh and Steve Jenkins about some sort of study. There's actually a few different types of studies that could be conducted. And so we're trying to think about what we already have the capabilities to do and what additional monies could help us learn more about. And one of them being understanding the network of home-based providers that must be in operation in our county, but it's just sort of beneath the surface. So learning more about them and what resources they need. And then your questions about the future of childcare, I think that's really great. And in future town hall meetings, we're going to have Alexis Fuller and Bridget Starr from the Door Community Child Development Center, and Cindy Trickner-Piat and board members from Northern Door Children's Center coming to speak to at a town hall meeting. And those are topics that they can speak to. So those are great. And I've made note of those questions. So thank you. And we've got Spencer and Alexis with their hands up.
Yeah.
Oh, and Jane, I'll get to you, Jane. I'm sorry.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Spencer, we can.
Perfect. Awesome. So one of the things that came to mind, that whole idea of, that community idea where block parties and stuff like that, that actually really hit me. That's kind of an interesting thing I've never even thought of. I know the city, now this only helps the city, but the county's welcome to join too, but we host that night out at the Sunset Park. And I don't know if we could maybe get kind of technical with maybe some of the activities that night, or maybe we do like games where the kids that show up to that night out, where we have our emergency vehicles and all that out, maybe we do like where they break up into teams with, kids that are close to them. So like maybe East Side against West Side or something along those lines. So maybe we could wage those relationships amongst the kids through that night out. Now it might be happening at school already, but it might be neat to bring the young kids from some of the, private schools with the, public schools. So I don't know, maybe that might be an event that we could look at trying to come up with some cool activities that would get the community closer together.
Well,
so that's just my little idea.
Yep. And by doing it that way, Spencer, the parents are there. So that helps build those parent relationships. Where at school, yeah, the kids know each other, but moms and dads don't get to know each other, or grandparents, if that's the guardian relationship. Where if we can say, okay, family A and family B work on the scavenger hunt together, you know, that can help build some of that connection there. So yeah, Spencer, I think that's a great idea. Christina, who was next? You're on mute. I'm sorry.
Alexis and Jane both had their hands raised.
Jane was ahead. Go ahead, Jane. I've talked a lot.
Jane, you're on mute.
There we go. Hi. I want to just agree with Cori, and I think it might have been Christina, I don't remember, about the training of finding out who is taking care of the children, the non-centered childcare. And I've talked, I know, with some people before about the Northeast Wisconsin technical colleges. Luckily, we have a Sturgeon Bay and we have a Sister Bay location. And if we could somehow fund for these people seminars, even to come and talk about what they do and what their concerns are and what they need, and then fund seminars for them about the information that Cori's talking about, whether it's you know, food, whether it's activities, whether it's literature, whatever it might be, behavioral issues. Karlie could probably help with that, so that they feel like they have a support group and they're not having to, and a lot of these people I'm sure don't have a lot of money to do it, but if we could fund it through the foundation or whatever's out there. There's a Wisconsin Early Childhood Association. I don't know if you can get grants from someplace to do these things. So that's one thought, you know, to give them a place to be feel respected and valued, and to get information to them. And then the other thing is, you know, I've had conversations with Cindy Trinkner-Piat about the fact that our county is such a tourist based economy that a lot of our moms and dads, and some of them, and a number of them are single, work odd hours, but they don't have a place, like someone was saying, if your child's getting off the bus and you have to go to work at 3 because you work the 3 to 11, and this could be in factory situations also. But Cindy said, you know, people said, well, why don't you do something about that at our childcare center here in Sister Bay? But they need, again, that funding, and they need the consistency. They can't say, well, you know, I'll bring them at this day, but not this day. And, you know, it's a more complicated issue. So again, you know, we get back to this idea of who's going to fund this. And I keep thinking about all the tourist dollars coming in, and if the businesses want to keep seeing these tourists come up here and provide money for their economies, you know, can they start contributing to some of this, some of these issues, and be part of some of the discussions? Because I think there is a weekend need and an evening need for childcare. And these people would love to see something like a center that they can bring their children to.
Thank
That's
you,
it.
Jane. So
Thank you.
the non-traditional, the outside of traditional work hours, the needs for that, and the numbers are low, but it's a real need. So finding a way to address that need rather than just say it can't be met.
Right.
Alexis?
I mean, there's only 2 minutes, so I don't know if you had any closing. I have a lot to say.
We are used to hanging on for at least 3 or 4 extra minutes, so we're happy to hear from you.
Okay. Well, thank you. I guess I have a couple comments because Cori mentioned the family and child resources of, so let's go back to COVID hits, childcare closes, and you're scrambling, and you find those resources, and the only 2 options are the 2 childcare centers. I mean, there's just, so I appreciate those resources, and their families definitely use them. As Karlie looks like she's right there. Yeah. So it's an access issue too. So I appreciate those resources being out there. They do a really great job of telling you, like, if you're in a home, what to look for and all that. So I think it's great, but you know, work was so helpful, and they sent out resources like, here's how to find childcare that might be available in your area, and there's 2. So that's fine. But my other comments are just more, yeah, I got emotional, so I kind of lost my train of thought there. Sorry. But yeah, I think that it's great. The other thing I wanted to say is the county did have a discussion about the budget, and the county is looking to put money towards a study for childcare, but would need more information about like process and oversight and that kind of thing. So the county is definitely willing. I've been a very vociferous advocate for that, but I think the county is positioned to help with anything like that. It's just a matter of getting the details worked out. And there was something else, I'm sure, but that was, sorry. Okay, I'm done.
One last thing, Christina,
Yeah.
we might want to think about having you come to maybe the Health and Human Services Board at some point to present on what you're doing, just to get additional support beyond Alexis at the county level, and provide some information on, when what the study might look like, what that might look like.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll just make a comment about that. A lot of people draw comparisons between the housing study that was done and then doing a child care study, both in terms of, I think, people think about in terms of logistics of executing it, and also what it will do for us. And in terms of executing it, the measuring what is known is fairly straightforward. It can be challenging, but going to the centers, the group centers that are in existence, and understanding their tuition rates and their enrollments and their wait lists and the ages of the kids and where the families live, all of that is totally doable. It's this network. We know we have a network of home-based providers because it must be there, right? But I couldn't put my arms around it. I couldn't go down the street and give you a tour. It's so unknown. Imagine doing a housing study where you said, oh, and then you go down this one street and you just kind of go in the forest, and you're going to find where some people hang out and they pitch a tent and they sit, and that's going to be part of your housing study. You're just going to find where people pitch a tent. That is so hard. That is what we are facing with understanding the home-based providers. And then when you get the results of the housing study, that was so helpful because it gave us information to provide to developers and say, this is a market. We need to build this many things of this many units, and here are the areas that are the spots where we need them. And the developers are like, I can work with that. I can start giving you plans, and I can start giving you numbers. When it comes to childcare, it is not clear that if we just build more centers, that will solve our problem. There's a profitability issue. The center business model is challenging. And there's also the fact that any sort of, I'm going to just call it an ecosystem, needs options. Our families across Door County need different options in order to meet their needs, both in terms of style and in terms of cost. So what a study can do for us to help us know what to build is a little bit of a challenge. So I feel like people are like, yeah, we have money and let's just go with it. And believe me, I love data. I love research. I would love to attack this, but it is a bit of a bigger challenge than may appear at first glance to do this study and then understand what information we're going to get and how it's going to help us. So we definitely don't want to waste people's time or money. And we're just trying to be thoughtful about moving forward with the study. We're definitely, a study will help, but putting that money to the best use is just what we're trying to be thoughtful about. So we are at 7:04.
I remember a comment, and it piggybacks off that, because what I was you asked for ideas, and my idea was going to be putting Karlie in a really uncomfortable and other counselors like her in really uncomfortable situations for themselves, and asking the parents. I mean, that's the people that hold that knowledge in their heads, is like, where is your kid? And that's, to me, the path to get to where these people are. And then we can say, okay, well, you know, Karlie down the road wants to make this a real thing, and now NTWET, the text here.
WTC.
Thank you. I grew up in Wausau, Wausau area, so I'm NWE. Sorry. So yeah. So the tech school is like, okay, now we can start marketing to like these people, and like what, and so I think, Karlie, we might have talked about this before, like way back too. It's like, that is sort of the inroad to that network, is folks like you as a mom and you as a counselor making those conversations, at least get them started. I mean, I don't know. So that was the thought that I had before. So thanks for letting me.
Yeah. And I guess I have no problem starting those conversations or even facilitating those conversations. It's the conversations with, how's finding childcare going, or what can I, like, how can I support your childcare journey? Because I can't support my own, so let's do it together. Like, it's that type of a thing where, like, I have no problem. I can find that. I can find where kids are, but I struggle with the, oh, you're struggling with it? Yeah, it's kind of just a thing. And that's honestly, that's what I was told when we moved. Like, we had found a in-home that was in Forestville before we found our house, which was unheard of. And we're like, yes, we are locking down, we got this. And then we found a house in Carlsville, and our commute was going to be almost the same as driving in from Green Bay. And I was like, why? Then that doesn't make any sense for us. And so then we were on the hunt again, and but we were basically just told, like, yeah, childcare, that's unfortunate. Like, I'd emailed the staff at the school. I reached out, like, please, somebody share somebody with me. I will cold call people. I reached out to the Northeast Wisconsin place. Like, it was not an easy thing. So I sympathize and I empathize with those parents, but I also feel like in my role saying, hey, you're struggling too, and then not having an avenue to help support them. Because if they're struggling with food, I got you. If you're struggling with rent, I got it. If you're struggling with your child's behavior, I can help that. It's the rest of the stuff that we don't have the answer for it right now. When I have the answer, I will go ahead to be like, oh, you're
Well, I
struggling
think that's
here.
great, Karlie. You've identified something that we need to work on, and that's great. We have a gap, and we can work on filling that gap, building that infrastructure like we have for the food and the housing, that resource center, the point of information. So that's great. Amy?
I just have a random thought, and I know I'm going to lose it. And if I make a note, it's not going to make sense tomorrow. So building off of what Alexis just shared, Karlie, is there some way we can work with the schools to add it as a question for the 3-year-old screening? Because when they're 3, they're still in childcare. And that also will help you know what you're going to get when they're 4 and show up at school.
Oh, yeah. Well, and even so this year's, obviously, let's throw COVID out the window for a moment, but right. In years past, I want to say the partnership had like, we have people that come, like, tables at registry or at the screening.
Yeah.
But even reaching out to other districts. So my oldest just was screened through Sebastopol. Yeah. And so every district has 3-year-old screening. And so definitely reaching out in that way, and that would definitely be an area I would think would help.
Yeah, if we could just make it a standard question on one of the forms, because I know not all the parents stop at our table when we're at the fair or pick up our information, but yeah, whatever those standard questions are that you guys are asking, if we could somehow incorporate that. And we are way past 7, so I'm sorry, I just had to get that idea captured.
Thank you. I wouldn't have known about that. And I want to take the opportunity for everyone to thank Karlie.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it was
all.
awesome, Carly. And this sort of conversation is what I hope for with these town hall meetings. A lot of information shared. I learned about things, and then having these discussions and getting different people's ideas and perspectives. It's so incredibly helpful. So we're having these meetings every other Tuesday from 6 to 7. And if you got invited by someone and you want to receive, I send out email updates. I'm happy to join you to add you to the distribution list, or you can just check on Facebook, the United Way page. We always have updates. And actually, little secret, it's the same link every Tuesday, 6 to 7. So if you had the link for today, you are good to go. We are also welcoming feedback on topics and future discussions to have, possible speakers. It can be speakers from outside the area, but also speakers within Door County. The next town hall on Tuesday, November 10th, like I said, we'll have Alexis Fuller and Bridget Starr from the Door Community Child Development Center talking about recent developments there and what they're looking to do in the future. So that will be great. And also, just a shout out, we were mentioning the film No Small Matter. This is an incredible documentary. It's so well done, and in 75 minutes, you learn things about the challenges faced by families, providers, and communities that's causing this challenge for communities across the country. We bought 10 DVDs, and as we say, we're doing old school library style where you can check them out and bring them back to us. We'll ask for some sort of collateral. I'm not sure yet. Amy's coming up with that to make sure that you return it.
Old school DVD player if you're going to use our old school library.
I wouldn't suggest children as collateral because you might just end up having like a daycare center. Here.
No, I'm not turning my old or new office space into a child care center, Carly.
So I
Just
want
a
to
thought.
thank everyone so much, and hopefully we will see you in a couple weeks. If you have any feedback or questions, again, it's Christina, CHRISTINA at unitedwaydc.com. Email me and continue the conversation. So thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.